For nearly 20 years, Nas said almost nothing. No interviews, no long explanations, and no public reopening of old wounds. Then in late 2025, that silence began to crack as the legendary rapper spoke more openly about the unresolved tension between himself and Jay-Z, his once sharpest rival and the center of the most famous feud in hip-hop history. What he revealed reminded everyone that some rivalries never truly die, they simply evolve. The feud between Nas and Jay-Z did not start with insults. It started with silence, a missed studio session that slowly turned into one of hip-hop's most important rivalries. Back in 1996, the power balance in New York rap was already clear. Nas was sitting on top of the city. Illmatic had already made him a legend, and It Was Written was about to turn him into a superstar. Every rapper wanted his approval. Every label wanted his presence. Meanwhile, Jay-Z was still proving himself. He was sharp, hungry, and confident, but Reasonable Doubt was his first real shot at greatness. He needed credibility, and having Nas on the album would have meant music everything. So the call went out. Jay-Z and his Rockefeller partners invited Nas to the studio to record a verse for a song called Bring It On. According to people who were there, Nas agreed. Then the session came. Jay-Z showed up. The beat was ready. Time passed. Nas never arrived. On the surface, it looked like nothing. Missed sessions happened all the time. But in hip-hop, especially in New York at that time, absence spoke louder than words. To the Rockefeller camp, this did not feel like a scheduling issue. It felt like a message. To them, it seemed like Nas did not see Jay-Z as an equal yet. That quiet moment planted the first seed of resentment. With no verse and no time to waste, Jay-Z pivoted. Instead of waiting, he and producer Ski Beats sampled a line from Nas's voice taken from the Pete Rock remix of The World Is Yours. That single line became the backbone of Dead Presidents 2, the emotional heart of Reasonable Doubt. Ironically, the song that helped define Jay-Z's legacy was built on Nas's words. What made this even stranger was what happened behind the scenes. When the sample was cleared, Nas ended up owning a piece of the publishing. That meant that every time Dead Presidents 2 made money, Nas quietly profited from Jay-Z's most personal song. For years, neither man spoke about it publicly, but the connection was there, tying them together, whether they liked it or not. After Reasonable Doubt dropped, the tension music did not explode. It simmered. Instead of direct shots, the battle moved into subliminal territory, where lyrics became coded messages and fans played detective. The first line that made people pause came from Nas himself on the opening track of It Was Written. When he rapped Lex with TV sets the minimum, it sounded simple, but context music changed everything. Jay-Z had filled Reasonable Doubt with Lexus references. He talked about them in his rhymes and showed them in his videos. Nas' line felt like a quiet dismissal, as if he was saying that what Jay-Z bragged about was basic by his standards. Music, no names were mentioned, but everyone in New York knew who it was aimed at. That was when fans realized something was brewing. Then tragedy struck the city. In 1997, the Notorious B.I. was, and New York hip-hop lost its king. Overnight, there was a vacuum at the top. Someone was going to fill it. Both Nas and Jay-Z believed they had a claim. Jay-Z made his intentions clear. On Where I'm From, he placed himself in the same breath as Biggie and Nas, naming all three as the best. To some listeners, it sounded respectful. To others, it felt strategic. He was inserting himself into elite company, declaring that he belonged there. Soon after, he released The City Is Mine, a bold statement that sounded like a formal claim to the throne Biggie left behind. Nas did not say much publicly, but insiders noticed the shift. From his perspective, he had history with Biggie, seniority in the game, and a deeper lyrical reputation. Watching Jay-Z step forward so confidently did not sit well with him. The rivalry was no longer just personal, it was about legacy. As the late 90s rolled on, the tension spilled over to their camps. Jay-Z's protege, Memphis Bleek, became the front line. Bleek's music began carrying the same confidence and swagger as his mentors, and at times it felt intentionally provocative. When Bleek released tracks that mirrored Nas's style or energy, fans saw it as a challenge sent by proxy. Nas responded the same way. He did not rush into a direct confrontation. Instead, he let the friction build. The mixtape circuit buzzed with rumors. Every line was examined. Every interview was dissected. The two kings were circling each other, music waiting. By the time 2001 arrived, the tension between Nas and Jay-Z was no longer quiet. The subliminal shots were done. The whispers had grown too loud. Everyone in New York could feel it building. The city was waiting for someone to say a name out loud. That moment came in the summer in front of tens of thousands of people under blinding lights at the one stage that mattered most. Hot 97's Summer Jam was not just a concert, it was a public court. And Jay-Z showed up ready to prosecute. As the headliner, Jay-Z controlled the night. Halfway through his set, the mood shifted. While attacking Mobb Deep, the giant screen suddenly lit up with a childhood photo of Prodigy wearing a dance outfit from his grandmother's dance school. The crowd exploded. It was ruthless, it was humiliating, but Jay-Z did not stop there. While Queensbridge was still reeling, he looked straight into the moment and said the line everyone heard clearly. Ask Nas, he don't want it with have, that was it. No metaphors, music, no code. Nas's name rang out through the stadium. For the first time, Jay-Z had openly challenged him in public. In hip-hop terms, this was a declaration of war. Nas was no longer just watching. He had been called out in front of his city. A few months later, Jay-Z pressed the advantage. When the blueprint dropped, it carried a song that felt less like a disc and more like a courtroom briefing. Takeover did not sound angry. It sounded confident, cold, surgical. Over a dramatic beat, Jay-Z went straight at Nas's career, questioning his work rate, his relevance, and even his business intelligence. He framed Nas as someone living off Illmatic while falling behind the times. To the industry, it felt devastating. Music executives nodded. Radio leaned Jay-Z's way. Many people quietly assumed Nas was done. At that moment, Nas was under pressure from every angle. His last few projects had been criticized. His label situation was messy. The narrative around him was slipping. Takeover did not just challenge him, it tried to erase him. For weeks, Nas said nothing, and that silence made Jay-Z's record hit even harder. Then December arrived. On Jay-Z's birthday, Nas finally spoke. When Stillmatic dropped, the energy shifted instantly. Ether did not sound polished. It sounded raw, angry, and personal. Instead of auditing Jay-Z's career, Nas went straight for his identity. He mocked his image. He attacked his authenticity. He painted Jay-Z as a follower who copied flows, thighs, and even confidence from the people who came before him. The Biggie accusations hit especially hard. In one stroke, Nas turned Jay-Z's greatest influence into his biggest weakness. Ether spread like wildfire, cars blasted it, barberhops argued over it, radio could not escape it, people did not just listen to it, they felt it. The song did something Takeover never did, it cracked Jay-Z's untouchable aura. From that point music on, Ether was no longer just a song, it became a verb. The streets reacted immediately. Chup 97 opened the phone lines to let listeners vote on who won the battle. On air, the results were presented as close, but years later, insiders admitted the truth. The calls were overwhelming. Nas did not just win, he dominated. The numbers were softened to protect relationships, but anyone outside the building already knew the answer. Jay-Z felt it too, and he responded emotionally. Instead of another calculated move, he rushed out super ugly. The song crossed lines. Jay-Z brought Nas's daughter's mother into the record and described graphic details that made people uncomfortable. What had been lyrical warfare suddenly felt personal and messy. The reaction was swift and harsh. Even Jay-Z's own supporters cringed. Then something happened that no one expected. Jay-Z's mother heard the record. She was not proud, she was angry. She told her son he had gone too far and demanded he fix it. The next day, Jay-Z called into Hot 97 and apologized publicly, not just vaguely but clearly. He acknowledged the mistake. In hip-hop, apologies end rounds. That call did not erase Jay-Z's greatness, but it ended the war. Nas had answered, the public had spoken, and for the first time in years, Nas did not need to shout. History had done the talking for him. Years later, when Nas finally reflected on it, the silence made sense. He had already said everything that needed to be said. The noise from 2001 never really followed them into the next chapter. After the dust settled, something unexpected happened. The anger cooled, the insults stopped flying, and for the first time in years there was space to breathe. Nas went on a quiet comeback run, rebuilding trust with fans through God's Son and reminding people why his pen mattered in the first place. Jay-Z kept climbing. Stacking hits, stacking money, and then shocked the world by announcing his retirement with the Black Album. By the middle of the decade, hip-hop had changed, and so had they. In 2005, Jay-Z was no longer just an artist. He was the president of Def Jam Recordings. The hustler had become the executive. Around that same time, he announced a massive concert called I Declare War. The title alone sent the internet into a frenzy. Fans assumed this was it. One last victory lap, one last chance to embarrass old enemies. Many expected shots at 50 Cent. Some even believed Nas would be dragged back into the fire. What happened instead stunned everyone. Halfway through the show, Jay-Z stopped the music and shifted the tone completely. He told the crowd the beef was over. He said it was time to move on. Then he did something no one in that arena thought they would ever see. He called Nas to the stage. The reaction was disbelief before it turned into chaos. Two men who once tore each other apart stood side by side. They shook hands, they performed together. Jay-Z rapped Dead Presidents while Nas delivered the words that once sparked their rivalry. Then they flipped it, letting Nas perform The World Is Yours. It was not a publicity trick, it felt real, and backstage it got even more human. By that point, Nas had already lost his mother, Fannie Ann Jones, who had passed away a few years earlier. Music, behind the scenes, Jay-Z reportedly offered condolences and spoke to him not as a rival, but as a man who understood loss. That moment mattered. It stripped away the armor. What started as rap beef ended in something closer to mutual respect. The reconciliation did not stop at that stage. In early 2006, Nas signed a deal with Def Jam. Overnight, the headline wrote itself: Jay-Z was now Nas's boss. Just years earlier, they were trying to destroy each other. Now they were in business together. Instead of tension, the move brought clarity. Their collaboration, Black Republican, felt like two survivors talking through scars rather than reopening them. They acknowledged the past without letting it control the present. From there, their relationship settled into something rare in hip-hop: stability. Over the next several years, they appeared on records together, not often but meaningfully. Each collaboration carried the weight of history. When they shared verses, it sounded earned. Two kings who had fought, learned, and outgrown the need to compete loudly. That image reached its peak in 2021 with Sorry Not Sorry, a collaboration released through DJ Khaled. The video showed Nas and Jay-Z sitting calmly at a casino table, cigars in hand, dressed like men who had already won. Music, it was not aggressive, it was reflective. Behind-the-scenes footage showed Nas reacting to Jay-Z's verse with genuine respect, praising the moment and even giving flowers to the harmonies provided by Beyonce. To fans, it felt like closure. But while the brotherhood looked solid on camera, something subtle was changing underneath. Their paths were no longer parallel. Jay-Z leaned fully into high-visibility power. His moves were bold and public: Roc Nation, title, luxury champagne, NFL partnerships. His brand became access, dominance, and presence in elite spaces. Nas moved differently, quietly, strategically. Instead of building brands around himself, he built positions behind the scenes. Through Queensbridge Venture Partners, he invested early in tech companies that would later explode: Coinbase, Dropbox, Lyft, Ring. While Jay-Z was reshaping culture from the front, Nas was stacking wins in rooms no one was watching. That difference stayed mostly unnoticed until New York State opened bidding for downstate casino licenses. Suddenly, the old rivalry had a new arena. Not records, music, not radio, billions. Jay-Z backed a proposal tied to Times Square, a bold Manhattan vision built around corporate partnerships and heavy tourist traffic. Nas aligned himself with an expansion plan rooted in Queens, connected to Resorts World, and framed around long-term community development. It became an unexpected contrast: Queens versus Manhattan, local investment versus skyline ambition. Music: when decisions were announced, the Queens project moved forward while the Times Square bite faced mounting opposition and stalled. On paper, it was just business. On the internet, it became something else entirely. Memes spread fast. Fans joked that Nas had delivered ether again, this time in a boardroom. The irony was hard to miss. The same man once criticized for lacking business sense had quietly ended up on the winning side of one of the biggest entertainment deals in New York. Eventually, Nas was asked about it. In late 2025, during an interview, he was questioned about fans using the casino outcome to embarrass Jay-Z. Nas didn't lean into it. He brushed it off calmly, saying, "People will always talk and there's no controlling that." Then he shifted the conversation away from the rivalry altogether, mentioning Rakim and Big Daddy Kane instead, and reminding listeners where his focus really lies. Music: there was no victory speech, no subtle jab, just distance, not a denial of the past, just no interest in reliving it. But that same year, the culture had already been tested. Back in late 2024, a firestorm erupted that set the stage for everything. The Super Bowl halftime show was announced for February, and Jay-Z, still holding major influence through his NFL partnership, selected Kendrick Lamar as the headliner. On paper, it made sense. Kendrick was critically untouchable, but the game was in New Orleans, Lil Wayne's city. Wayne had openly wanted the spot. When the announcement dropped, backlash exploded. Artists close to Wayne spoke out: Nicki Minaj, Birdman, Cameron. The criticism was loud. People accused Jay-Z of playing politics, of using corporate power to decide culture from above. Once again, eyes turned to Nas. This time, he did not stay silent. Music, but he also did not pick a side the way people expected. When asked about the controversy, Nas focused on Kendrick, not Jay-Z. He called Kendrick the North Star of hip-hop, not a trend, not music. A moment, a guide, someone artists could look to when things got confusing. He spoke about protecting the art, about how people who are not here for the culture can damage it. He never mentioned Wayne by name. He never attacked Jay-Z, but the message landed anyway. By calling Kendrick the North music's star, Nas placed himself in a lineage. Rockam News Kendrick, a straight line of artists who treated rap as a discipline, not just an opportunity. Whether fans read his words as a quiet critique of the industry, a subtle jab at corporate control, or a defense of pure artistry, it did not matter. Nas had positioned himself exactly where he wanted to be, as a guardian, not a gatekeeper. Then, to close out the year, Nas turned that sentiment into action. In December 2025, he quietly dropped Light Years, a full collaborative album with DJ Premier. For longtime fans, it felt unreal. This was the reunion people had waited decades for. The same producer who helped shape Illmatic was back, stripping the sound down to raw drums, sharp scratches, and space for Nas to talk freely. Music, the album did not sound like a comeback. It sounded like confidence. Nas rapped like a man who had nothing left to prove and everything left to say. He spoke about money, yes, but not in a flashy way, more like confirmation. He framed his investments, his casino win, and his tech plays as tools, not trophies. The real prize was still hip-hop, the bars, the craft. Critics noticed the contrast immediately. Jay-Z had spent the early part of the year entangled in corporate controversy and NFL politics. Meanwhile, Nas was ending the year with pure art, present, active, and still rapping at a high level. Fans started whispering again, not about beef, but about hunger, about who still loved the culture enough to just show up and rap. And that is where everything finally makes sense.